Welcome back, everybody, to our week 29 energy update for energetically sensitives and empaths. My name is Bryndis, and this is the weather forecast for collective energies for this next week, July 13th till 19th. Yes, welcome to this weekly update here for those of you who are dealing with the inner and outer energies, not really sure whether it's yours or not. So the reason or the objective of these energy updates is not to scare you or to give you a prediction or to set you up for anything in particular, but to inform you about some of the deeper views and the deeper energies that are going on here right now as an outer condition. And truth is hitting the fan. That is the theme here for this next week here. And you see this energy barometer on red. So don't take this as like, oh my God, it's all going to be bad. On the contrary, so I've explained this a few times. The energy barometer gives you information about the intensity, okay? And intensity is something that can be good for a person, it can be bad for a person. It can make you, it can vitalize you, it can invigorate you, it can give you new ideas, it can inspire you, but it can also make you, dive really deep into the rabbit hole or get lost or get trapped somewhere. And so by sharing, what these energy workers, myself here at transCODES experience ahead of time, and due to our training, I'm trying to help you guys to be a bit more sort of in the present and really feeling, not being afraid, to feel into your own emotions, into the stuff that is going on inside of you. Yes, and just as a quick reminder, this is life, and welcome back. Welcome, Houston. I see you. We've been having technical issues here, a series of unpredictable events. And so this is my second try, and everything that I am going to talk about here for this next week, I just had to practice this half an hour ago. But know that the reason why I'm doing this live is for you to be here. So please let me know how you're feeling. Maybe it can help you if I make a few comments about what you're experiencing right now, just as so that you can contextualize this a little better. And let's move on with the overview here, and then I get to the energy tips for next week. As you know, I go very, very detailed into the physical, emotional, mental, behavioral, or social, spiritual, and energetic aspects of what I'm talking about. Okay, so the subtitle to this week's energy update is Growing into Your True Self. And this has to do with maturity. This has to do with this transformation that we have been talking about. But really what all this is about is now understanding that these shifting energies that are coming in, this was felt very strongly last week, this pivotal type of almost like being forced to look into the mirror, is now going into the next stage. And that is, okay, so what did I see when I looked into the mirror, when I allowed myself to feel the depth of my emotion? And what does this mean now? Okay, what are my patterns here? Are there maybe payoffs in staying here? I've mentioned this quite many times before, that the nature of our ego is that it doesn't really want to change until the pain of staying somewhere becomes greater than the fear of change or the fear of the unknown. And so growing into our true self means nothing like, accepting our truth, becoming sort of a neutral witnesser, where we can allow ourselves to experience what is going on and not be afraid of it and still stay in our center. And also with this pivotal energy is now, coming in on a collective and planetary level, this eclipse season. Okay, so this is not really that unusual. This happens twice a year, and usually around full moon or new moon. We have a new moon partial eclipse here, which means that we're probably not going to see it but we're going to feel it. So we're already under the effects. And what do eclipses do? Now, solar eclipses typically prevent us from being able to continue, sort of the illusion, okay? So because they disconnect us from source, but from also from the illusionary source of our power, which means that in a solar eclipse time, we almost like stand all on our own, okay? And we have to really look at what comes from within and what have I falsely believed in, to nourish me or to make me strong from the outside. So a lot of things that have to do with our relationships, that have to do with our patterns, and especially the externalization and also the manipulation, is coming to the forefront during solar eclipses. Lunar eclipses are more times where we go into the depth of our emotionality, inner child karmic stuff, kind of like what we did last week, but always with the push, to go into resolution, especially when it's coming with a new moon like it does here today. This gives us, like this extra energy, I want to say, and also the task, to really implement this, to not just talk about it, to not just contemplate about it, to not just meditate about it, to actually do something about it, because it shows, it illuminates the schisms in us, okay? And schisms are part of our dualistic nature here as humans. But when we begin to see what is true to us and what isn't, all right, then there is also the task for us to grow up and acknowledge that, and to change something in our behavior or in our views, or even in, like where we live, or the job that we have, or, the lifestyle that we've been following. And for many of you guys, I've predicted this in the July forecast. This July is a time where a lot of this is about physical integration, and also taking care of your body, and perhaps even going into different lifestyle choices, all right? So the overall theme here is maintaining our center, to find the balance, to not get lost, in rigidity, or in, this sort of lovey-dovey, everything's going to be fine kind of attitude. And, to develop the pragmatism that is needed to navigate through this. So if we are too pessimistic, if we're too afraid of the future, then we can get lost, in our old patterns. We can get trapped in, through other people, or through all these externalizations that we've allowed in our life. And if we are too optimistic, in a sense of, sort of kumbaya, the world is going to hold hands and sing peace together type of way, of course this is exaggerated, but you know what I mean, right? That's not realistic either, okay? So things have to happen, things have to be done, all right, for this new paradigm to really get a foothold and to change our societies here, what we are expecting to happen within the next 2, 3, 5 years. Okay, it requires us as individuals to go into this active, this proactive participation. And so the duality here is, to maintain balance, to not fall for extremes, and to seek the present moment as the decisive moment for the outcome of our future decisions. Last weekend here we had a wonderful new training modality that we introduced to the transCODES community, and practiced the future self, how to connect with our future self. And what we found out is that you can't really connect with your future self as a guide, or as true inner guidance, if you are unwilling to look at your past self. So there's a connection here. It's like a Mobius strip. It's all connected. And so as much as we want to just look ahead, or some of us, of course, also find out in the course of that they look into the rear mirror too much. We need to be willing to bring both of them into a balance. And sort of the mantra, the credo that we discussed here a lot last weekend was all places are here, all times are now. But that's something maybe that you can sort of internalize a bit here, and when things start getting rough, like they did with me here half an hour ago, to really go into your center, to clear all the things that are influencing you externally, and to not go into your pattern, and to not quit. Right? Don't let this pull you down. There is stuff going down in the collective right now in the same manner. All these things that affect us personally affect the collective in the same way. And so what we are seeing here is now, this last, attempt to continue, keep illusions up, and the manipulation that we can all feel, the matrix. Those are all things that we're feeling, and we're willing to get out of it, but we're not really having the far side yet, and the courage, to do what it takes. And so this is kind of like the task, guys. This is a very collective karmic task that we all have, and we'll go through what this means here for us personally in a second. Earth changes wise, and socially, or how this plays out in our societies. Stay alert. There's still a lot of water around, but more so things now, again, with traveling, accidents and so forth, to stay aware, stay in that moment to get the right guidance at the right time, guys, because there's a strong unpredictability aspect to this next week. Our energy centers that are being affected is basically all of them, and this is usually really tough on us because it literally sort of goes through us like a router, but there's an interesting constellation with this. So this is the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd that is being cleared out, and the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th, and they represent the schism in us. Okay, so it's our emotionality, and it's our past, and it's all the unresolved and unhealed stuff in us, and then the future and the sight that we have, the precognition that we have, that really wants to come into implementation. And the heart chakra, is sort of the glue. That's where we can bring both of these together, this yin-yang sign, it's not just masculine and feminine. It's also internal and external. It's also, dark and light. So it applies to everything. So it's all about balance here, okay? What we will see in the news most likely, besides, unfortunately, acting out of terror, acting out of hatred, and I've said this in the energy forecast for July, that there's a lot of really unjust things, like where it hits the powerless, and this could also be you, all right? So always remember, guys, everything that is coming forward right now, is destiny in its making, okay, for yourself and the entire collective. And you can't change the world. You can't heal the world. All we can do, guys, is heal one at a time. And the major, sort of larger energy wave that we are experiencing here is the one that brings the global shadow forward. So for us as collective to move into truth, the shadow needs to be healed. The shadow, the darkness, the inner darkness of the system, the repression of the feminine, the repression of the powerless, the illusions of power and so forth. All this requires sort of a breakthrough, and for that, things have to escalate. They have to build a bit, and we are right in the middle of this escalation phase. All right, so hang in there, guys. I'm reading your comments. Yes, Ekana, you're writing, I'm an empath and I've been completely exhausted over the past couple of weeks doing a cleanse to try to get my energy back. That's really good. This is what I mean with with being proactive and going into active self-healing. But some of it, you can't clear away. You have to be, really with yourself and not be afraid of big emotions, not be afraid of facing some of these inner patterns, that you're now beginning to see. So this is really the only mistake that we can do, is if we choose to stay in our illusion. All right, so hang in there. This is pretty much what all energetically sensitives feel right now, and don't throw the towel. This is not a time to give up. Okay, this is not your fault. All right, but allow all that, to be part of how you perceive, the world and yourself in it, and watch where your energy is going with this. Yeah, I'm going to be talking about this here in the energy tips now. Thank you for commenting, and please, guys, take this opportunity, to really to get feedback or something like that. Here we have a forum for energetically sensitives and empaths, where you can do that as well. All right, so how's this going to play out in our physical here this week? Well, we just talked about it a little bit. First of all, we feel very exhausted, and it removes sort of the source of power. But if you're asking me, it is for most of us a wrong source, a false source of power. And so when that solar plexus energy, which is power, but it can also be our ego or ego illusion, and for many of us it's also the mentalizations about all that. When that gets sort of inhibited a bit, that's when we start feeling alone. And when we start feeling alone, that's when these like really old unhealed things come forward, physically, emotionally, mentally, and in our relationships. So the main question here for this next week is, what makes me feel safe? What makes me feel strong? What makes me feel loved? What makes me feel nourished? And I mentioned this before, it has to do a lot with our health. So on a physical level, it's the question is, what is really good for me? What is really healing for me? Not falling for rigid diets, or concepts, or thinking that you have to do things because you're spiritual. This is all part of your false self. All right, growing into your true self means, to only do the things that are conducive, that are congruent to you. And my tip in general here, as I've already said before, is to avoid extremes. Don't go into extremes. So the basic needs that we all have as humans, they need to be balanced. Because if they're not, the stress on your energy system is too big. And with it, your ego patterns get triggered. And from then on, it's basically the beginning of the end. It's like a domino, it just goes from one, sort of misery to the next. So you're doing the right thing here, to focus on recuperating, but also reflect a little bit about some of the things in regards to your basic needs. If the diet or the exercise routine, or if that's really conducive for you. I was a marathon runner for many years, and I like running. And yes, there was also a part of like sort of running away from certain things and sort of beating my mind and all these kind of things. So there was a lot of unhealed stuff involved in that. I still liked it though, but it wasn't very healthy for my body. It wasn't conducive for my body. And so eventually, I realized, okay, if I do something that maybe involves running, but not in this extreme way, it could be a lot healthier for me. Just as an example here for you guys. So it's about the larger picture of our needs and what are our basic needs. There are some needs that we as empaths have. We have, an increased need for silence, for order, for softness around us. But many people actually disregard their basic needs, and that is water, food, exercise, warmth, connection, shelter, sex, security. Those are really, calling in here this week, and to balance your life accordingly. Okay, it's a really good time also for quitting your addictions, especially substance addictions. And it requires you to come up, I would say, with a new strategy. Make a plan at least when you want to quit and how you want to do this. And the food and the exercise and all that has a lot to do with your addictions. But understand that whatever your addictions are, not just the substance addictions, also the behavioral addictions, such as pornography or shopaholic or workaholic or whatever it is, that they are directly linked into how strong your ego is triggered. And your ego gets triggered more when your energy is under more stress, when it's less balanced. Okay, so the prime directive is always to get balanced first, so that you can then, like literally rise out of the ashes, like a phoenix. It's a rebirth, and allow yourself to witness this. Don't be afraid, okay? If you have addictions that you would like to tackle, I mean, we do a lot of recovery work here at transCODES. You can always, of course, request a free initial energy coaching session with me, where I can give you a little bit of a roadmap. But you can also, go do entire programs with us that can help you to transcend your addictions. And I'm reading your comments here. Yes, I know, guys. I'm sorry for you guys having lost the stream. It's like I've said, adaptability, right? There was a lot of things here that happened all at once, and I just had to let go and start over again. Emotionally, this question, what makes me feel strong, here translates into our emotional life more in the sense of like what makes me feel loved, what makes me feel nourished, what makes me feel home. Where do I feel safe? And it's very important here that you prepare yourself for repressed or unhealthily expressed emotions to come forward this week. All right, but only for you to see it again. And I want to point out that, especially amongst empaths, it's almost like a, I don't know, I have this too, but there's almost like an addiction to pain. All right, beware of your boundaries with pain. Empaths have this like really twisted boundary of pain. You're sucking up too much, guys. You allow yourself to become a doormat. You're absorbing too much, and that is partially your ego. So don't, just see this as, oh, the world is unjust and everybody's just out to get me, or I'm a victim. That's your ego, all right? This is not your true self. So please take this as a reminder to go look into this. Now, at the same time, also look at the emotional manipulation or even abuse in some of your guys' cases that you are exposed to and that you may actually even enable. A lot of people around you are going to act out in insecurity and also hatred or, like sort of blind rage, especially towards the powerless. And this could be you. So please be careful, stay alert, and really work with your boundaries, with your emotional boundaries. Don't get pulled into the past. Guys, this looking up of exes on Facebook, I don't know where this is coming from, but this is a really, really bad habit. Why would you want to do this? Things that are already behind you, okay? And were, like say, you've had negative experiences, don't go back. This would be a time where people do this, okay? And when they can get lost in that, all right? So mark my words here, this is not a good habit energetically. It does not contribute to you feeling loved. On the contrary, it's just going to create a lot of issues. Now, mentally, this translates into what makes me feel secure, and the boundary issue here comes in as gaslighting or crazy making. I can't see you right now. Somehow the chat is not working right, but I mean, literally raise your hand if you have been crazy made, and gaslighted for most of your life. This is most of us empaths, guys. Or we've contributed to gaslighting and crazy making to others, out of narcissism or superiorism. Once more, one of the things that I kept repeating here in random energy sessions throughout the week, narcissists are empaths too, guys. They're just, more unhealed. It's really important that you go into this like super clarity in your communication with other people as well as with yourself, okay? And like I've said, it's not enough to just meditate over it or to let it go and to hope and to dream. No, things need to be implemented now. Talking is not enough. Even when it comes to relationship things, you've got to ask for things to be changed now. You focus on what you can change and let go of the things that you can't change. And if it involves a partner or a boss or a co-worker and they can do something about this, and this was kind of like what your agreement was, then claim it, ask for it. Say, I want this to be changed, or else, I got to go look for something else. And sometimes things cannot be changed, all right? Then you need to look into the future, by exploring entirely new ways. Personally, I've had, as a consequence of these pivotal energies that were coming in last week, and I shared this with you, ask yourself, why not? Why not? Why not? I'm actually, I've decided to move, all right? And this is something that I did not think about 2-3 weeks ago. This is a real shift, and the way I got there was by taking down all the illusions. I mean, and of course there's pros and cons to a lot of things, but so it wasn't like, I was in a complete illusion. It was just like I was trying to hang on to like all the good stuff. But at some point, when it doesn't make me feel secure, when it doesn't make me feel loved, when it doesn't make me feel strong, when it doesn't make me feel nourished, it doesn't make me feel home, then I have to change something. And this is the time now, guys. All right? Don't procrastinate. It's a really good time to look into education. Maybe going back to college. If you are so lucky to live in a country where that gets, sponsored somehow through grants or, discounts somewhere, then, consider it. Socially and relationship-wise, this is will come forward here quite a bit for you in your relationships, especially. Yes, and I'm reading your comments, and you guys have had some experience here with gaslighting. Yes, just recently on Sunday, I see it, Denise. And you learned a lot about your boundaries and integrity. Exactly, this is about integrity, and now more so about actually clear communication, saying, hey, this does not feel good for me. This doesn't feel right. And I don't want you to do this again. Or, I've had enough of this. So like really seeing through this and following through with it. Don't let yourself get pulled into the guilt and the shame and even, self-beat up, the judgment, why you haven't seen this, or why you didn't see this in the past. Guys, is your ego. All right? Forget about why you didn't see it in the past. I can give you a simple answer because you couldn't see it. You can only see what your current consciousness level allows you to see. That your perception is directly linked into this. Is this a justification or excuse? No. But really what it means is if your energy is low, your outlook on life, the outlook on yourself is low as well. You can only see low options, and you come to low conclusions and low choices, which usually include some form of coping, not just addictions, also, these patterns, these behavioral patterns that I talked about in the beginning. And so this is the time to become clear-cut with yourself, and say, this is a pattern, and I'm identifying this, I'm seeing this now, and as I'm seeing this now, I've got to do something about this, okay? You cannot kid yourself anymore, because you're already seeing it, all right? Do you know what I mean? So in your relationships, this, can be tough, and it requires a clear-cut communication. And it requires you to see into the karmic relationship aspect of your, maybe with your family or with your job or with your partner. And again, here, don't let yourself get pulled in the past, because that's not where you're going to increase your energy, or you increase your vibratory rate. Chances are that your energy is going to go low when you go in the past, because your conscious level is higher today than it was in the past. So don't orient yourself in the past, and don't let, these things sort of make you feel guilty or ashamed either. This is all part of your false self, and as you're growing into your true self now, you have to make a cut and say, okay, this is it. I couldn't see this before, fine. I take responsibility for this. I own that part. But now moving forward, I don't want this anymore. Yeah, sorry guys for losing you earlier again. All right, so spiritually, and socially also, I want to empower you here to really also have the words for this. Do not tolerate this pressure anymore. Do you know this? When people set you under pressure and they corner you, and you feel like, and then you don't know what to say, or you don't know how to react. This is part of gaslighting and crazy making. Do not tolerate this anymore, guys. Say enough. Okay, you can't corner me like this. Let me feel this out. I get back to you. If you have to make relationship decisions or whatever, then go back, come back, revisit. Don't let this hang in the air. Don't let others hang in the air either. Okay? All that leads to low self-esteem and very low trust in yourself. So growing into your true self means also that you become able to trust in yourself, and you have to do something for that. Because the reason why you're not trusting in your true self is because you did things in the past that violated it, or compromised it, or weren't integrous. Okay? Yes, I know. You can't really hear this message often enough, although I feel a bit preachery there, and don't want to be on your nerves by sounding like a broken record, but this needs to come in here this week. It's a very important reminder. Spiritually, there was a strong pull to the astral last week, and this is still going on a little bit this week. So guys, once and for all, spells and curses, how much power can they have over you? They can only have as much power over you as you give them. The more you externalize their source of power, the more power they will have over you. There's ways to learn how to protect yourself. There's ways to simply not be susceptible to this stuff anymore. But one thing I can tell you for sure is not helping, and that is you going against people that you think have put a curse, as in constantly thinking of them, constantly being afraid that they've maybe cursed you or have put a spell on you. Let that go. Instead, focus on your own energy, guys. Really go in, learn how to feel your own energy. Learn how to trust in your own energy. Learn how to trust in your own powers, guys. Let go of all of that. And as much as I like talking about a twin soul and twin flame and energetic or etheric kind of relationships in a positive sense, there is 95% of all the info out there, and everything that you think about it is false, is misleading, and I see this over and over again. So stop falling for those illusions, okay? These kind of relationships are there, and you will know it when they're there. But what you perceive as oh, my soulmate, the one and only, that's not it. Okay? So it's about internalizing versus externalizing, and as long as you think that there's this one and only, and it's got to be him or it's got to be her, then you're still externalizing. All right. So build this confidence and discerning your own energies. Train it. And one tip that I have here for you that may inspire you perhaps intuitively to go into a place with that is work on a clear yes or no signal within yourself. And whenever something happens to you, or in a conversation, or in interaction with others, always double check with yourself. Your true self is the only authority that can tell you what is true to you, what is conducive to you, what makes you strong. Nobody and no one else can tell you that. So the energetic aspects here that are coming forward in this week, overall it's about balancing our energy. You've heard me say this already. We did masculine and feminine energies because they always help to reunite the inner balance, to get into our or reconnect with our own source of power again. It's about consolidating your energy. There's very maybe not too simple, but there's clear energy work techniques out there that you can learn. We teach them here in public transmissions, as we call them. Those are remote energy training sessions where we accompany you while you go into this deeper state, and then give you the feedback later on. What it is that really comes through in these energy training intensives or energy training sessions is then the guidance that is really coming from within you. Okay, so if you are part of our Sacred Self-Healing community, which is based on a 24-step course, but also comes with a lot of free workshops, daily meditations, and so forth. We have the step 2 ego control meeting or workshop here for Saturday, and we had to change the time, guys. It's going to be at 2 p.m. MDT, that's Denver time in the US. So please forgive me for having to change the time. We got some other things going on here, and can therefore not be there at 4 p.m. MDT. So 2 p.m. on Saturday for all of you guys, members of the Sacred Self-Healing community. Right, and this concludes the energy update for next week, 13th till 19th of July. I need to get ready for the crypto spiritual energy update, where I translate all of this into the cryptocurrency market and what this means to our finances, for empaths, for the conscious investor. So if you are interested in this, tune in here in 20 minutes and let me know what you're interested in. We do pretty elaborate integrity tests there, so this is actually very experimental and very, very cool. Hope you guys have a good week. Thank you for coming. All right, and stay grounded in all this heat. You see me sweating here. It's like at least 95 degrees right now. So don't be afraid of this heat in the collective. Thank you. Bye-bye.